Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Eric and I have a strange obsession with London Underground model railways and things of that sort of interest. And we are in the process of building a London Underground depot for exhibiting. Now, I've not done anything on my main layout Harefield since the Chesham show, which we did about 2 months ago now. Since then, the railway's been packed up in the log cabin out the back of my house and I've not touched it. However, a small amount of work has continued on my little depot I've been building, and as it happens, I now have an exhibition in a week's time this Saturday coming, which is the Tony's Trains 10th anniversary show, and that is at the Mount Sorrel Heritage Centre on the Great Central Railway on the 10th and 11th of May. But I suppose we've got to get something ready to show off at it, so without further ado, let's make some progress on my little depot. Right then, so those of you who have been following along with the channel will know that I started building a depot called Croxley Hall Depot, and that is to eventually go within the plans for my main layout. So this will go on the branch line of my main model railway Harefield. It will be viewed from the other side when it's integrated into the main layout. However, for exhibiting on its own, it will be viewed from this side. So the shed will be at the back and in the foreground, little depot road, stuff like that. However, me being me, I can't leave anything alone for 5 minutes, and I wasn't happy with how it looks at the minute because it was a bit too low in the viewing area. This did have a canopy all across it and it was enclosed in. It was a little too low, bit of a letterbox kind of sort of shape to it. And also I would quite like to bring the scenery out a little further forward. I mean, scenery wise, that basically is just going to be a road, but it will kind of help to create the whole kind of scene. And also there is another reason for having a full road, which is intentional, and that's because I want to fit a Viessmann Carmotion system. More on that in probably a separate video. I might make a few references to it in this one, but we'll see how we get on. But yeah, the idea is as I can't leave anything alone, I want to change some bits, so I'm going to bring the layout out 4 inches. I'm also going to raise the canopy heights, so you can see I've made these new end panels out of 12mm ply, and they actually slope down to the Backscene, so that just gives you that extra little bit of height for the viewing area. And then the canopies will go across the top, and I will actually put a top on and obviously Backscenes as well to enclose it all in, because this layout does have full day and night lighting with the yard lights and street lamps all coming on when it reaches night time, so that should be fun. So another little change I've done is I'm actually getting rid of the bridge that was going to be here. That bridge happens to be sat here just feeling sorry for itself in its unfinished state. So again, that was going to go there, and I was obviously going to have to extend it if I extend the layout. However, that idea, I've now sacked it off, and in doing so it gives me a little more room to create a bit more scenic interest over here by including the signal box that I couldn't fit anywhere else. So this is the signal box in question. I bought it quite a while ago, I think from a show, I can't quite remember now, but it's a nice small little box. It's the right way round and it's got a full interior. If I take the roof off, you can just about see in there. It has got an LED in there to light it up, which is high enough where you just about can't see it when it's turned on. But we've got a signaller in there, we've got all his block instruments and his lever frame underneath. So that'll be quite a nice little thing. And I'm obviously going to change the sign at the front. A friend of mine, Richard Hall, did me some Croxley Hall Depot signage for a signal box. So that'll go nicely. And the plan is to put this somewhere around here, just behind the signal. I will of course have to create a bit of a walkway for the signaller, but I think that will be a nice little addition, and it kind of helps just set the scene. And I wanted it on there originally. It used to be over here somewhere, and then I changed my mind, and now we've got low relief factory / warehouses. But I think that'll look really good up the top end of the yard, so that they can signal trains out and onto the main line. Now, the main thing with this, going back to the bridge, is if I had that bridge in, then of course I have to extend it if I extend the front of this layout. I also then have to extend it again if I put this into the main layout or make a different bridge, because in the main layout, some may know, but this will have an extra 1 foot on the end of it, and that will be for the actual branch line to run across the back of the scene, because that end will be coming from Harefield. If you know the setup, you'll realise that Harefield has a piece of track coming right off the end board, and that is so that we can bolt a branch line onto it. So the branch line will run along this side, and it will carry on past the depot into a terminus station based loosely on a mixture of Watford Met and Northwood Hills, and then you'll basically shunt back into the depot. So that's the general idea. So obviously this has to be incorporated 2 different ways, and that gets very difficult when you are having scenery that has to come on and off. Because if I don't have the bridge on the main Harefield setup, then of course you need scenery under here, whereas with the bridge it's all going to be bare. So that gets very hard. That's another reason for changing it to putting the retaining walls at the back, because these retaining walls are now completely glued to this Backscene board, and there is an ever so slight gap at the bottom of them so that I can cover this in ground cover. That should then bolt down and butt up against all the ground cover, but it can come away when I extend the layout onto the Harefield kind of side of things. So that's the theory behind that, and obviously, as I said earlier, it gives me a bit of extra room here to add into the scenery some more, and I don't think it looks too bad. I quite like the idea of travelling through the holes in the arches. I've got to, of course, line this with some brick to make that look a bit nicer, and do a bit more painting on this to just bring it up to scratch, but I think that will work quite well. Now, those of you who are aware, all of my baseboards that I build are done by a friend of mine called Tim Horn. Very, very clever chap, and a really nice bloke. So naturally I've nagged him some more, and lo and behold, we have a pair of 4-inch wide baseboards to extend the layout. You can see here they work sort of perfectly for the front, and they are this width because they will give me the perfect size for the complete road system, and we can then have cars trundling up and down, or first it's going to be a skip lorry in fact. So that's going to trundle up here, it's going to turn around in this little loop, and then it's going to go back on itself. It's going to go along here, out the exit, and then another return loop, where Tim is actually currently sorting me out a fiddle yard in the form of a 1-foot board for the turn loop for the cars, and then a 4-foot traverser on the end of that. You will see that this new board, I have gone ahead and hacked it up already. I wasted no time getting the saw out, and this is because I'm going to have this layout operated by DCC Concepts Cobalt S levers. I have got a little signal box kind of set up that I'm going to build, and here are the levers themselves, and if the wires aren't sticking out the back too much, that should fit in. It's a bit of a fiddle with one hand. You'll probably have to just trust me on this. There we go. That is a tight fit in there, and that will sit there perfect. So when we're at a show, we can operate this with the levers. It will now operate the points on DCC rather than being hardwired into the point motors. I will cover that. I'm going to do a separate video on the DCC Concepts ESP system. Originally I was going to, as I say, just hardwire them into the motors and then use it manually. But for future use, I want to be able to use iTrain on this. So being able to use it with DCC is handy, and being able to have this wireless is nice because I can just give it to someone at a show if they want to play around with it. And all it will leave behind is a bit of a hole, and we'll have no dangling wires everywhere. I've also fitted an alpha panel from DCC Concepts, which will allow me to plug my Uhlenbrock controller in, and that obviously is placed here so that you are nearby the lever frame. These are a really good little thing if you use LocoNet. I use a DigiKeys DR5000, so obviously LocoNet is incorporated into that. So I can just put a plug from the DR5000 to the back of this, and then my LocoNet controller will simply plug in to one of these 2 ports. If I remember, this port on the left is for if you use an NC power cab, but don't quote me on that. But I couldn't put it under here because, of course, the lever frame has to slide down over it, and it was just a bit tight with space. This is actually why there's a cutout on the lever frame itself, because originally the lever frame was going to sit in there permanently, and this panel was going to sit there. So that's why the cutout was there. But however, I'm now going to have to fit some ESP gadgets under there, so I'm going to need the space. So I've got a plan for this, and we will get into that. So I have in the post currently the Viessmann Carmotion system from James at DCC Train Automation. He's kindly hooked me up with a starter set that also includes a skip lorry, because that's the kind of thing that will suit the layout. So he's done me a bit of a solid there. So if you are looking for a Viessmann Carmotion system, you can go and check out James's DCC Train Automation shop, or you can also find them at AGL Model Railway Store. I'm not sure where else sells them. I would have to have a look, but they're the two that I know of in the UK. But go and check them out. They're a really cool little system, and I will hopefully be able to do a video on that showing how it works. It's a bit like Fala on steroids. The cars have got little sensors in them so they don't crash into each other. You can use magnets to give them things to do, such as stopping at traffic lights or crossings, things like that. You can even put passing points in and have like little, almost sort of like points basically under the track, so that you can change the way the magnet strip faces so that it will follow a different route. So you can do all sorts of stuff. It's really cool. Obviously on this it's going to be quite basic. It's just going to be almost like an out and back sort of dumbbell shape, but that's because of the limitations of space. Whether we can fit anything else in the future, we will have to see on that, and it also depends on, of course, how tight a radius they will go around. Well, I am on a massive time crunch, and that's partly the reason why I'm not going to film everything, because it just takes so long. But to give you a basic rundown, I'm going to start doing the road today, because the Viessmann Carmotion should be here today. I've got to get a 3mm Dremel piece out and basically Dremel out a slot for the magnetic tape to sit in. Then I've got to cover that in filler once it is proved that it works. Then obviously paint the road again, weather it up a little bit. It's not going to be perfect, and then go from there. Got to extend some grass and scenery and things as well, just to suit the new boards that are in front of me here. And I've also got to paint the sides and the back scene. I've got to get some back scene boards and sort them out. For the front fascia, Terry 2, a friend of mine, has done me a Croxley Hall Depot lightbox sign in London Underground style. That's very nice of him. So he's done that out of acetate for me. But yeah, anyway, let's get on with it. And I'll probably come back to you when I've made some progress and show you what I've been up to. Nice to catch up anyway, and I'll see you in a bit. It's so mint. Well, the Viessmann Carmotion system turned up, so I wasted no time getting the magnetic tape down to give it a little test run. So just place it on top of the baseboard, letting the car do its thing, and just making some tweaks before I draw around it and then start cutting. And very pleased with how it was sort of performing. So after this video, I kind of just went for it and started cutting it out. So I'll skip from this onto the finished article, where you can see it all laid into the road. And I'm just going to begin fillering it. So I've done a coat of filler, painted it with some primer, I've just chucked it on. So obviously it's still tacky. You can just about see the track. So hopefully with the textured paint we'll lose that, and we'll hopefully lose some of the little imperfections and stuff in the filler. Crossing fingers anyway. So yeah, we should be alright. So what am I up to now? Well, as you can see, the layout is on its front. I have now modified the end panel, because of course this panel can't be bolted to the end because you've got a baseboard to go in there. So we've got no choice, but that has to be on there with brackets. In hindsight, it would have been nice to have this baseboard built with an end piece that extends up in this shape, which I was going to contemplate asking Tim Horn to do me, but then I thought, you know what, for the time it's just easier if I modify what I've already got. So I've done that. I've bolted the front canopies back on just to check, and even though they don't have a middle support, they sit there nice and snug because they're all kind of pulled in together, so they sit pretty well. But also what helps is Steve from Railway Laser Lines has done me a solid and cut me out of MDF a light box for the Croxley Hall Depot sign that Terry 2, a friend of mine who has a fantastic underground layout as well as a beautiful Scottish layout. I'm not going to try and pronounce it because I'll upset him. He kindly did me the insert, and this will light up in that kind of purpley blue colour of the underground. But I need to get like an opaque back for it to diffuse the light, and then I've got to fill it with, of course, 12 volt LEDs and light it up. But that is going to bolt to the front, which in turn will strengthen it, because it's going to bolt. I've already had it in there. It's going to bolt there, 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 and there. So that will strengthen this joint. But the advantage is also it will hide the joint, because you'll have this in the way. So that's cool. I've checked all that. That works fine. For those that like to comment on the mess that's going on in the kitchen every time I do one of these little projects, Charlotte's out tonight, so what she don't know can't hurt her, as long as the kitchen's cleared up by the time she gets back. But you can see, anyway, I am now doing Backscene boards. The disadvantage with doing this by going to B&Q and getting some woodcut is they come in 8-foot lengths, big massive sheets, and now the boards are obviously 8 foot, but because I've changed the way the backscenes all bolt together, these boards need to extend out the back to actually meet up, and sadly I clearly got my measurements wrong. So at some point I'm going to have to redo these side boards, and they don't actually stick out the front enough. There is a small little gap, which is annoying, so I don't think I'm going to have time to do it before the show. So I think for now I'll make do, and I'll probably put some of this right angle stuff that I got. I think I will put that around the edge to kind of pull them together just temporarily for the show. I think that'll get me by for just the one. And then after that, as I say, I'll probably trace around these, go a little bit longer at the back so that I can screw into the back scene from the side, or put some bolts in, or whatever I'm going to decide to do. And then at the front, again, it needs a little smidge extra. That'll be the phone then. As for the layout itself, you might notice the road has got a lot wider, and that's because it is all tarmacked and fillered and finished. Obviously there are no markings, but the Viessmann car system is all up and running. It works perfectly. I'm extremely happy with that. So I now need to come in and do road markings. This section here is tarmacked up to there, and that bit, ignore that bit, that's basically going to be a little bit of wasteland / grass. This is going to be a couple of parking spaces, and then we're going to have the same behind the substation here, because of course every depot needs somewhere for drivers and workers to park their car. So that's what them spaces are going to be used for. Obviously the hole there is for the lever frame to sit in, which at some point I need to clad to make it look like a building. Might not get time, I might just paint it up for the show. I'll see how I get on. Obviously we need to continue that bit of grass, and then the back bit I need to glue the signal box on, which sadly I have dropped. So it's currently here in many pieces. So it's an easy fix, being resin, it will just glue together seamlessly. But we are getting somewhere. So I've clamped these boards on the back, got them where I want them, so that there's no gap in the centre. These will be permanent, obviously removable, but these will be the permanent Backscene boards. It will only be the sides that I change. So I'm going to now go along, measure up, and then put quite a lot of bolt holes in, probably one every foot, and then they will bolt into place when I want them to. Right, welcome back. So last time I think I was bolting on the back scenes. I just clamped them, I was getting all that sorted, and then going from there. As you can see, we got that done. Back scenes are bolted on in position, they're nice and solid. Pretty happy with those, they fit very nice. Obviously, as I think I touched on in the previous clip, I'm going to have to replace these sideboards at some point, so bear that in mind. I do want to put a top lid on here eventually, so that when I go to shows, the light from the show isn't affecting the nighttime sort of running of this. So I want to do that at some point, but I think I'm going to leave it without, just for this show, because I think it's just going to be too much to take on. I don't know, I'll see how I feel later on in the week. Currently I've got 5 days until it's got to be ready. So you can see that I've painted all of the front now of the fascia. I've also painted up the side of the little edge boards, just to pretty it up for now. I think that's going to be good enough. Obviously I've got to paint the back scenes blue. I've done that one. So I've got to match all of them in. I've got 2 pots of paint to do that with, so I might try and find a roller to make my life a bit easier. I've got one somewhere. Other things I've been doing, I have got the signal box in. So there is Croxley Hall signal box, as you can see, next to its signal. And just around it I have put some Woodland Scenics, sort of dirt scatter. I don't know if I can sort of get in there to show you a little bit better, but that kind of just frames it in nicely. I do want to put a tree in the back. I've got to find one that's the right size, because that will sort that back corner out nicely. I've tried some bigger ones in that are too big, but they do help, and they disguise the fact that the bridge goes into nowhere. So I definitely want to put a tree in there. I've also just used some Woodland Scenics grey ballast just to make a little kind of pathway up to the box for the signaller. And in turn with that, I've cut out the conductor rails here, and I've cut a gap in the middle. Same sort of thing as up this end of the sidings, where you've got the gap for people to walk. So obviously we don't want our signaller getting electrocuted, so we've got that. I've glued back in the cable arch here, so that's all good to go. And also I have put some ground scatter around where the lever frame goes, as you can see. Same scatter again, so just to tidy that up. And I will come along with static grass and fill in and kind of try and match it in with this section here. Same with this bit at the back. It needs a couple little bits of static grass. Don't want to go too mad. And then also I've done the front bit here where the road separates off. So this is going to be a parking area. I think I touched on it before. However, previously I was thinking of having the cars like this, just a couple spaces. But then I thought about it, and I was like, actually, it would probably look better if there are car park spaces along here, like so, because obviously you fit more in. We have got 2 in the foreground here. I've just quickly done a couple boxes to denote the bays. Trying to think what else I've done. This vehicle is permanently glued in now. I liked the look of it on a previous photo I did where it was around the other way, but I like that it's an LU vehicle with the LU depot in the background. I think it's a pretty cool little thing. So that's glued in, and I did make sure that the Viessmann Carmotion truck has got enough room to get by with a little bit to spare, just in case they ever bring out 00 gauge vehicles in the future. Same as these ones though, these are glued in. So all I've done is I've got well, that one isn't, this one is. So I took this vehicle and put it on some emery cloth and went backwards and forwards while holding the wheels, and that gave me a flat spot on the wheels. So I've put some glue on the flat spots and then put the flat spot on the ground. So it just gives it a bit more surface area to stop it pulling away so easy, and that's nice and solid now. It also kind of makes it look like the tyre is sort of depressed into the tarmac, if you like. Other little things, I got one of the Rapido Lomac wagons, the affectionately named Bromac from Tony's Trains of Rugby, because it's a great central version, and it came with these spare wheel sets, so I thought they look quite nice there. That's the sort of place where you would have them delivered, so that's cool. Got a biffer bin from Bunter's Yard up there. I will put a skip in here, obviously, for the skip lorry. The crane is now glued in position. The depot, I've just put it in there to get an idea what it looks like. It's not glued in or anything. I've got to try and rig up some sort of bodge job of lighting before it goes in permanently. But you will notice the main thing is I've taken up most of the downstairs of the house, because I'm now looking at sorting the traverser out. Now this is the very nice Tim Horn baseboards traverser that he's done me, and it is about 4.5 foot long in total, and the traverser itself is 4 foot. And he did it this way so that it actually comes up flush with the front, because the layout is going to be operated from the front mostly. So it's flush at the front, locked in, and then it goes all the way back, as you can see. So I'm now just trying to work out how many roads I can fit on. I believe it's going to be 6. And I'm just trying to get them all lined up as best I can to give me the maximum space between each one for getting my fingers in, and also so it just works as nice as it can be. The only drawback with doing this is that the exit of the depot is quite central, which usually is a good thing, but on this Traverser ideal world I wanted it slightly further back. So you can see I've got these two copper clad sleepers in. That denotes where I need the track to reach, so it's going to be a bit of an S-curve coming in and out of the Scenic section, which shouldn't be a problem, but in turn that will help it miss the Carmotion system, which goes around this little circle there. So yeah, I'm going to cut this bit of track up. It's just an old spare bit of bullet. I'll fit that in place up to that copper clad sleeper. I've got to put two more copper clads in for this join. Well, I'll put two each side. I'm going to extend these out because this is the join where the Traverser baseboard meets this baseboard. So we've got to have a little section there, a small section there, and then obviously our 6 Traverser roads there. And then we'll be cooking on gas really. It'll be a case of put some droppers in, wire it up. Dropper's going to be fun. Not sure how actually I'm going to do that. I might run a dropper that kind of extends down and under the baseboard around the side because it slides. I need to do like some sort of extendy clever kind of thing, but I might just keep it simple. I'll just wire all the roads together so they're all live at once, because this doesn't need to be automated or anything in the future. Can't be bothered with that. So I guess I better crack on and lay some track. Well, a lot of aggro, and an hour before I've got to go to work, and time's up. The layout is running. Got a few little detail bits to do, but I'm pretty happy. Thank goodness for that. Well then, as you saw there, just in the nick of time before I have to go to work, I have got the layout up and running, and the Viessmann car system is running. The Traversers are wired up. We are pretty much good to go. There are things that I still have yet to finish. However, I think for the show itself, it's going to be passable, and hopefully it will all run well enough. I am having a little slight problem with the Cobalt levers. I think that I need to sort out a decent power supply for them, because the little battery that I ordered to run them wirelessly hasn't turned up, and they seem to throw up a bit of a hissy fit if you connect them straight to the DCC bus. So I'll look at that maybe after the show on Saturday, see if we can get them to work properly by readdressing them and starting again basically. But for tomorrow, when the show is on at the time of filming, we're going to have to rely on using my phone connected to the Z21 app to change points and the signal, and hopefully we will get by with that. So I'm going to end this video here. Obviously I've got to go to work, time is of the essence, so I will see you all for part 2, which will be when I arrive at Tony's Trains little exhibition. So thank you for watching. Hopefully it's been an interesting little video, and I will see you shortly for the next one. So take care, and I'll see you soon guys. Bye for now.